So in this video, we'll be making a brand new tier list, ranking every meta unit in Anime Last Stand, as of the most recent Godly Frieren update. Do keep in mind the rankings in this video are just my opinion, but I still hope you enjoy the video or find it helpful. If you do, maybe leave a like or subscribe. But anyways, let's get into it. Okay, first of all, sorry if my mic is a little bit weird in this video. People are still doing 4th of July stuff over here, so might be kind of weird. But today we're making a tier list, and for the tiers today, we have the same ones as always. I went ahead and got the farms out of the way. Those are pretty self-explanatory, and I want to be pretty quick today with the explanations because we have quite a few new units to talk about. So starting off with the Godly Frieren, this is, in my opinion, is pretty close between like Sun Jin Woo and Gilgamesh. We'll kind of talk about that in a bit, but this is, in my opinion, the best unit in the game right now. Damage value, supporting value, and infinite potential with her nuke / abilities. She's very strong. She's got a bunch of different spells which are kind of like damage-based nuke. She's got a golem which can get up to quadrillions of HP in infinite runs. She has a lot of damage by herself. She's pretty expensive to max out, and 1 million to get her golem. I don't know, really crazy for everything, and very solid godly. Let me go ahead and grab Sun Jin Woo while we're here. I forgot to kind of move him up because he got reworked this update. Godly Sun Jin Woo, this guy is, in my opinion, the second best unit in the game right now. And it's a little close between, there's a firework, a little close between Gilgamesh and Ichigo, because really the like deciding factor with Sun Jin Woo, if you want to use him or not on your team, is because he is more manually heavy. Like, you have to actually play the game when you're using him. You have to pay attention and kind of focus on his ascensions and everything, because how this unit works is when he gets more kills, so if he can kill enemies, which he usually can because he's pretty strong, he will get a bunch of skill points where you can increase his damage or all his stats, then also ascend him, unlocking new passives and so on. So there's a lot to pay attention to with Sun Jin Woo. Stark, this guy is also, in my opinion, meta overall. He is very solid. He is full AoE on all upgrades. His DPS is really good. If you pair him with a unit that can stun him, he can also ramp up in damage by quite a bit, and Stark is very good overall. Fern, also going meta overall. We got a lot of meta units this update. I think Fern actually has like maybe second, third, or fourth highest DPS in the game right now if you account her ability, because her ability is going to do a lot of her damage in like 25 ticks or something like that. She's also fairly cheap. She's not that expensive to max out, and then she does have supporting value as well by giving units in her range more elemental pen when she uses an ability. So she is actually pretty good for supporting, very good for damage, and overall just kind of towards the top of the meta in the game right now. Delta, this is a meta early unit. This is going to be full AoE on placement, pretty cheap, hybrid, and the dismantle effect, which is going to do a good amount of her damage. So the way she works is she's going to kind of ramp up her rage bar when she attacks, and that rage bar, when it maxes out, is going to give her mutilate instead of dismantle. It buffs her damage and something else, I don't know. And she's very good for DPS on placement. She takes a little bit to ramp up, but because she's cheap and overall just really good full AoE, I'd say she's meta early, and after she ramps up, she is really good. Harabelle, she is a support, and the way she works is like, she has the soaked effect, so she can make fire enemies take more damage from water units. She's going to have like a burn effect every now and then, which is not very good, and then she's going to give water units in her range a weaker version of burn. So she's kind of like a water buffer, a water support, and I don't know, it's just kind of gimmicky, too gimmicky for me, too niche, and she's just kind of okay. I don't know who this is, but she is from Black Clover, and I think her name might be Flame Queen. She is going to be a very good burn buffer. She's going to be full AoE on final upgrade. She has Sunburn and Blue Flame. Really good DPS as well, and a couple passives centered around burning enemies in her range. So she's a very good burn buffer. I'd say she's kind of like a support right now, but also she's strong enough to be meta overall because her damage is just really crazy across all upgrades. So I'd put her in meta overall as well. Again, we got a lot of meta units this update, and it's kind of crazy. I think this is the last unit from the new update. We have 2B, I think her name is. This is going to be a pretty gimmicky unit. She's very weird. She's kind of like RNG. She's going to, there's another firework. She's going to have a chance to kind of apply detonate in her range, which is going to be a very good effect for scaling off her damage. But her damage isn't too high without rolling detonate, so I don't know, she's got like an RNG passive. You gotta try her out for yourself to really explain it, but most of the time she's not going to be that crazy, and also her in the decent tier. Now that we have the brand new units out of the way, I'll start being a little bit more brief with the explanations, because I think I've talked about most of these pretty in-depth in my previous tier list videos. But Erza is kind of a raw DPS water unit, meta overall for sure. Very good, very cheap for her pretty high damage. Tanjiro, okay, I actually want to talk a little bit about Tanjiro, because a lot of people were mad about where I put him in my last tier list video, and Tanjiro's DPS is really good on final upgrade. That's the thing, is you need to get him to final upgrade. If you don't get him to final upgrade for 800k, he doesn't have his ability where he kind of changes forms or whatever, and he's not very good. Before you max this guy out, he is just kind of a stinker. I wouldn't recommend using Tundra unless you're going in an infinite run or something, and I'd probably just put him in decent. Yorichi, also going in decent, but a pretty solid unit. He's mostly a boss killer. Virgil is a meta infinite unit with a reputable nuke that does quite a bit of damage. It kind of scales with the amount of waves passed since you last use it, so it can kind of infinitely scale up and do trillions. Very good for infinite runs. Dante going in meta overall. Most of his DPS comes from his hot swap mode, one of his forms that has like limited uptime, so it's kind of conditional, but he is very, very strong. Doflamingo is a decent support unit. His support is kind of like the more he attacks something, he can kind of slow it down and rewind it, which is okay. Asuna going towards the bottom of decent. I'm not a fan of this unit. She's kind of like a weird version of Kirito, where she has to ramp up to actually be good, and she's just not that great even after ramping up. Nami is meta early for sure. All of her passives are very solid, especially the Blizzard part where she has a bunch of enemies in her range and applies Blizzard, and her DPS is also really good on placement. Gogeta Blue, just a meta infinite unit. He has a nuke, I believe, but he's not that great for anything else. Broly, I'm going to put him in towards the bottom of meta overall. He takes a while to ramp up, so there's definitely better options for just raw DPS, but yeah, this guy's kind of a raw damage unit for infinite runs. Vegeta Ultra Ego going in the top of decent. He's okay. He does pretty alright damage after he ramps up, but kind of alright. Granola also does pretty good damage, and I put him in decent as well. He does have a couple supporting passives with Shred and Exposed, I believe. I think the other one's called Exposed. He's pretty alright. Pucci is mostly a support with full AoE pressure and the ability to rewind enemies and reset ability cooldowns for his teammates. He's pretty alright and very cheap. Megumin is a meta infinite unit. She is going to be pretty much a nuke only. All she can do is damage to her abilities. I believe her detonation might be bugged from her abilities, but if her detonation did work, this unit is very good for infinite runs because her nukes can do a ton of damage. Jiren, I'm going to throw in decent. He's just kind of like a gimmicky raw DPS where you don't want him to crit, but also for his best DPS you want him to crit. So his passive kind of counteract what you actually want to use him for, and it's kind of wonky using him. Aizen is a pretty good support. He's going to make enemies take more damage when they're near him and apply pressure. The blue Gogeta fusion is very good, definitely meta overall. He has a pretty solid nuke and just really good raw DPS. Yuta is also going in meta overall. Again, very good nuke, very good DPS, and he does have Despair as well, and a couple supporting passives to really help out. Rize is going to have detonation and just kind of okay DPS, not too crazy. Put her towards the middle of decent. Yoru also going decent. Her DPS is not that great, but she does have access to a bunch of different stats effects, which can be pretty okay. Power also going in decent. She's going to be a bleed unit. She does have a nuke on final upgrade that can be spammed for pretty alright damage, but otherwise she's just kind of okay. Katana Devil is decent damage, so he has bleed, hemorrhage, and pretty alright DPS output. Makima, meta infinite unit for sure. She's very expensive to fully get going, so you mostly want to run her into infinites or high wave content. Aki is also going in meta infinite. He's going to have a passive that can stun enemies and make them have a very low chance to be one-shot. Law is definitely going meta overall. He's got a lot of supporting value from a rewind passive and a rewind ability, which overall good for everything. Denji, also meta overall, really good raw DPS unit and can copy the stats effects of other units in his range. Meliodas is also going in meta overall. This guy will always be meta in my opinion because he has a nuke that can kind of scale off the strongest unit in his range. So kind of like a support unit and also not that bad for his own personal damage. Kefla going in meta overall for sure. She's very good for DPS. She does take a while to fully ramp up, but she still is pretty okay. Angel Devil going in meta infinite. He takes a very long time to ramp up and is pretty expensive, but he can get a strong nuke. I think it goes up to 35 trill if you ramp it up fully. Toji going in decent. He is full AoE, has a couple of weapons he cycles between for various passives, and does pretty alright DPS. Gojo is a support for sure. He's going to have a bubble around him that makes enemies walk slower when they're near him, and he has a good time stop and a good nuke. Buddha is also a support, but not a very good one. Pretty much if a buff is applied to him, he's going to turn it into a buff for units in his range, and it's going to be a 5% damage and crit chance buff. Judge Guy, also a support. He's going to apply, I believe it's called Extinguished pretty often, which is going to be like a damage buffing thing. Giorno, I would say, is mostly a meta infinite unit. He's not used for his personal damage much anymore, but he does have full AoE slow and a rewind ability. Akari, in my opinion, going in meta overall. He has an ability that can go into jackpot mode and do really good DPS. It is kind of limited uptime, but I think if you use it right and use his ability at the right time, he is still very, very solid. Dark Sakura, I'm going to throw into the top of decent. Still a pretty good unit, but like, you want to have teammates with around 8 second SPA for her full value from one of her passives. A little bit more conditional nowadays, but still pretty alright. Shadow definitely going meta overall. This guy has access to a bunch of good nukes on final upgrade for infinite runs. He's got pretty good full AoE damage. He's very expensive though, but even if you don't upgrade Shadow at all, he's going to be good for progressive because of his permanent despair passive. Gilgamesh will also be going to the top of meta overall. He is going to have very good DPS, very good nuking abilities. His Summon Enkidu and himself have very good access to a bunch of different stats effects. Top 3 units in the game for sure. Caster Saber is just a damage buffer. She's alright. Maki, in my opinion, the best meta early unit in the game right now. She is very cheap, does really good damage on placement. Itadori, definitely meta overall. This guy is... I use him in my Infinite Castle video a lot, and I realize he is good for early waves and also really good for boss killing, because for some reason he can do like hundreds of billions with his black flashes. So if you know how to use him, he is very good. Julius, in my opinion, is a meta infinite unit. He has good supporting value from one of his RNG type of passives, and he does have most of his value from a nuking ability, which can ramp up to 7.5 trillion based on the damage he has dealt. Medusa, I would say, is going down to decent. She is still a very good support with Petrify, but now Frieren has that, which is going to be like kind of the better option for Petrify. Tenkin's also going in decent. Flayoe, Bull, and Weakened unit, pretty alright. Noelle is going in meta early. She has good placement damage for very cheap, and she's good for water element. Ishtar also going in meta early. Very good damage on placement for the light element and kind of ramps up over time for better DPS. Azdeath going into support for sure. She's a Blizzard unit, eventually becomes full AoE, and has like an RNG 50% damage buff to a random unit in her range. Pretty good. Madoka I would throw into meta infinite. She's pretty good for progressive, especially if you know how to use her witch form transformation thing at the right time. But overall, I think most of her value comes from infinite runs for sure, because she has a very strong nuke in her goddess form. Conrad, I would say, is going into decent. He's actually not that bad. He can change elements, so he's very versatile. He has an okay nuke, and he also has very good stats effects as well. Bone Demon, in my opinion, is a pretty good meta early unit. He is neutral, but he has very good stats effects and pretty good damage. Water Shinra is just a water buffer with Blizzard, pretty good support, but not too crazy. Fire Shinra is just a burn unit, and burn is kind of getting back into the meta because of the new Fire Queen unit, but I don't know, Fire Shinra is still just kind of decent. He's not that great. Death the Kid is going into meta early. This guy is very cheap for pretty good placement damage, but he is reliant on rolling the Madness form for his best performance, so a little bit RNG and kind of situational. Nature Shinra, definitely a meta infinite unit. He is full AoE with a chance to one-shot anything he hits, and he does have a rewind ability that can also do 15% of HP. Madara is really only used for his rewind ability, and it's pretty okay for infinite runs, but nothing crazy. Yuno is definitely going towards the top of meta early. This guy is very cheap for good hybrid damage and the slow passive. Asta is going into meta overall, but kind of falling off in my opinion because of how his rage bar actually works. You have to kind of wait for it to ramp up. Anos is meta infinite. He has a pretty okay nuke, but it takes a very long time to ramp up fully. The first evolution of Law. I know it might seem like kind of a weird pick, but he's actually a very good support for shortwave content. Because for only 50k, you can get him to his rewind ability, which has up to 3 uses per enemy. Very good for stalling, and I'll put him into support. Yu-Gi-Oh! Definitely going into meta infinite. He takes a lot of investment. You need certain units on your team to even use him, but he's actually very good for raw damage and time stop and nuking abilities. Maka, the tournament unit, is definitely going into meta early. She's kind of a weird pick, but she's actually good for fire and physical damage. Neutral Shinra, pretty good infinite unit. He is going to have a nuke that can do I think 1 trillion, and rewind enemies and reset ability cooldowns. Quincy King is a pretty good support with full AoE better fear, and some damage buffing and a nuking ability. Hisagi is just a very situational damage buffer. If you can get 25 kills on him, he can buff damage by like 50%, which is really good. Light Shinra is going into decent. He is a bolt unit with a nuking ability, but his DPS just isn't that crazy anymore. The Immortal King, definitely top of meta infinite. He has a one-shot everything on the map nuking ability, which is very, very good. Kirito is going into meta early. Cheap hybrid unit, pretty okay damage, but it takes a while to fully ramp up to be very good. Benimaru, also going into meta early. He's okay for placement damage with Black Flame and Sunburn. Unohana is a bleed buffer, very niche, not that great. Pride is really falling off. We do have the Flame Queen to kind of bring back burn meta maybe, but right now, because Pride is kind of like a burn buffer and a burn unit himself, burn is not too great right now, and he's really not doing that great of damage anyway, so Pride's going in decent, and he's pretty low in decent as well. Arthur is going into meta infinite. He has a nuking ability that can one-shot the 3 strongest things on the map. Erwin is just a pretty good raw damage buffer. Support mode Kurumi is a full AoE, chance to one-shot anything she attacks, kind of like Nature Shinra, meta infinite unit. Luffy definitely going into meta overall. He has a very good godly lead, and pretty okay DPS on all upgrades, good supporting passives, and a good nuke if you max him out, so good for infinite runs, really just good for everything. Dark Shinra, meta infinite unit, he has an okay nuke, and that's about all. Wukong, I would say, is going into decent. He's just not that great anymore. He is very cheap to get to full AoE. His DPS is very good if you max him out, but there's just way better godly options, and his godly lead is kind of too gimmicky to stay relevant in the meta. Goku, in my opinion, is kind of towards the bottom of meta overall. He does have a pretty good nuke, but otherwise he's really falling off. Ichigo is definitely going towards the top of meta overall. He has very good DPS, it does take a while to ramp up, but pretty good for really everything. Saitama's going into meta infinite. He has a nuke that can execute anything below 33% HP. Dio is a meta support, very good for reducing SPA and time stopping and doing pretty good damage with his summoning nuke. Sukuna, in my opinion, is going into meta infinite. His DPS is not that great anymore, but he does have very strong nukes once you max him out, so good for infinite runs. Cosmic Garo is a very strong support. If you use his godly lead, is going to buff crit rate and crit damage by 50%, and it is pretty much going to have perfect uptime if you have the right SPA on him with a good trait and good enchant. Leafa just reduces SPA by up to 10%, nothing too crazy. Tatsumaki has a very good slowing passive, can be used as a meta early unit, but in my opinion mostly a support nowadays. Kashimo is going into decent, very good DPS if you run him with a bolt team, but I don't know, kind of conditional. Buff Motokurumi is a good support for damage buffing and buffing crit chance, and has a 90-second time stop. Subaru is also just a damage buffer. I believe his buff is a 50% uptime with a 35% damage buff. Geto is a meta infinite unit with a summon passive, and a pretty strong nuke if you wait for him to ramp up. Kaido is a good support for the Daze passive. And finally, Heavenly Gogeta is a meta infinite unit with a nuke that can do percent base damage to bosses. And here we have the final rankings. Of course, at the end of the day, this is just my opinion, so feel free to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Anyways, thank you to my channel members for making this video possible. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you in the next one, and have a great day.